sooner or later, the folks who are running things in Washington with Republican control of everything have to recognize that the way you get things done is by winning the middle, not by playing only to your base. And we haven't had that for a while. And that means you got to work with the moderates in your own party. You got to work with people in the other party. And if the leadership in the Republican side can't make that happen at this point, with their hands on the rudder of everything, we're in for a rough period and the kind of stagnation political that Jamie Dimon talked about the other day.
Just a quick question, which is talking about that stagnation. Do you think voters who look at this situation on either side are shifting alliances or allegiances, if you will, because of it? I'm not sure they are at all.
Well, I think, look, I think if you look at the polling numbers, by the way, I think what you're seeing is that, after Donald Trump won, he had independents in a pretty good place in most polling. Right now, with his approval ratings going down, the most problematic numbers they have are a majority of independents fleeing. So if you look at a historical point, when George Bush, the last president who lost the popular vote and won the electoral vote in 2001, his approval rating overall at this point in his presidency was at about 52-35. Donald Trump's today is a mirror image of that, and it's largely because of the failure with independents.
Joel, this is a tricky situation, though. We keep saying, these guys have been saying for years they were going to repeal and replace. That's what they were elected to do. That's what they promised to do. We know that public opinion has changed and is looking at this a little differently, but how are these elected officials supposed to keep up with it? And by the way, if Democrats were in charge right now, do you think things would be any different within their own party, or the same fissures there?
If they were in charge of both houses?
Let's just say the Democrats were running the show. I mean, the Democrats have a pretty wide variety of opinions, just like the Republicans do in their caucus.
Well, they wouldn't have started out by trying to repeal something that,
that
as you pointed out.
Yeah.
Look, the Republicans in their repeal movement actually drove up the numbers on Obamacare. I was President Obama's pollster throughout his entire tenure in office. We never saw approval ratings of Obamacare as high as they are now. And the threat of taking this away from people who gained some benefits, is far worse than the uncertainty of what would come with the repeal and replacement that they're talking about.
What kind of fixes do you think need to be made to make it work to the extent that there are markets where it's not?
Right. You got to start out with the fact that one of the things, the fundamental design of the system was predicated that states would expand Medicaid. And I know we could have a debate about Medicaid, but 20 states didn't, or 19 states didn't. So when you talk about markets that aren't working, part of the problem is that one of the integral pieces here was to have it working the same way in all 50 states. Now, whether governors anticipated horrors that didn't come to pass in the other 30 states, what you're seeing now is the reality that half the people on Medicaid are children. High percentage of people over the age of 65. These are voting, families who are concerned about losing health care for people who are vulnerable in their own families. I think that was a big miscalculation.
But another part of the miscalculation was thinking that more healthy people would sign up because of the penalties that were there. If you don't have people signing up for this, you are not going to be able to address the idea that the premiums are very high because most of the people on the plan use it.
Right, and there's a real question about whether the penalties were high enough. And maybe at the beginning of Obamacare, you should have made the mandate and the penalty more stringent. Right. Governor Romney had done that in Massachusetts, where it actually worked a little bit better. You have to have real penalties with some teeth in it for healthy people who don't sign up.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.